Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind address the theme, crossing new frontiers to conquer today's challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine.
The high-resolution general circulation modeling is the most vexing grand challenge problem in extreme-scale computational physics. The general circulation model transcends and traverses across calculus, algebra, computing, and across the new internet that I invented as a new global network of 2 raised to power 16 commonly available processors that were identical to each other and that were equal distances afar and apart from each other. That network of processors is de facto a supercomputer that is 16 orders of magnitude faster than a computer. To make that experimental discovery that encompasses the disciplines of mathematics, physics, and computing called for a polymath and not for a mathematician. That polymath must be a jack of all sciences and must be at the frontier of scientific and technological knowledge. That polymath must be a master of mathematics, physics, and computing. That polymath must know calculus and know it forward and backward and know it from the storyboard to the blackboard to the motherboard, and most importantly, know how to solve the toughest problems arising in calculus and know how to solve them across motherboards, that each is an ensemble of processors that computes as one seamless, cohesive supercomputer that is beyond super. I'm Philip Emeagwali. I'm a supercomputer scientist. I am an internet scientist. I am well known, but I am not known well. When I visit the public libraries in the United States, I often run into elementary school students or middle school students or high school students doing research report for their school reports. Some school reports were titled Famous Scientists and Their Discoveries, or Great Inventors and Their Inventions. Since my experimental discovery of the massively parallel processing supercomputer that occurred on the 4th of July 1989 and that made the news headlines, thereafter, many school reports had the title The Contributions of Philip Emeagwali to the Development of the Computer. Each school report on Philip Emeagwali presumes that the 12-year-old writer understood what he wrote about the precursor to the massively parallel processing supercomputers that I invented. Each school report presumes that the 12-year-old writer understood how I experimentally discovered the new massively parallel processing supercomputer and understood my detailed explanation that spanned thousands of pages that the new technology is a new internet and understood my explanation of how the new technology makes the modern computer faster and makes the modern supercomputer fastest. That experimental discovery and invention of the massively parallel processing supercomputer took me 16 years onward of June 20, 1974 to understand. Therefore, it's impossible for a 12-year-old whose 42-year-old father was not born when I began programming the fastest supercomputers in the world back in 1974 to understand the massively parallel processing supercomputer that took me 16 years to understand. So a 12-year-old submitting a school report on the contributions of Philip Emeagwali to the development of the supercomputer is like the boy that looked at the tip of a faraway iceberg and told his father that he has seen the 90% of the iceberg that is underneath the surface of the ocean. 90% of my research on extreme scale computational mathematics that led to my experimental discovery of the precursor to the massively parallel processing supercomputer is dense, abstract, and as invincible as the 9/10 or 90% of the iceberg that is below the water's surface. Because only 10% of my invention of a new internet that was a new supercomputer and a new computer was understood, I am well known, but I am not known well.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.